Michael Hahn here, or as they call me on the show, Roo. I was leading my watercolor class this morning, and I was talking about repetition, food and music and art, good recipes. All those are built up by repetition over and over and over. You just have to do it. We were spending the majority of the show talking about water in watercolor. I mean, it's half of the equation, right? Watercolor. Too much, I call it the Goldilocks effect. Not too little, not too much, not too light, not too heavy, just right. How do you know you get it just right? You repeat the process over and over and over. You practice, you exercise it until you say, hey, too many eggs in that cake, too little eggs in that cake. You got to get it there. And so there's a process you do that. And so we're talking through that, and we're talking about how you get into this for the right reason. But I'm always getting some information about, if my art's getting better and people are asking for my art, how do I sell my art? So, well, you sell good art for one thing. And the other thing is people start to ask for your art. And they start to say, hey, I want some of your art. And so, but you have to sell yourself as an artist also. And that's the tough one for a lot of artists. So you don't have to write an essay, but you do have to write 3 sentences about who you are. And maybe one of those has to do with why you paint and not even what tools you use, but what's instilled in you just being a maker or a creative person. Or as I like to say on my class, I think like an artist. Do you think like an artist? People say, are you an artist? And I say, I think like one. That changes my attitude. But people say, hey, I need to sell my art. I'd love to sell my art because I'd like to get it out there, and it builds my confidence and it helps me buy supplies. So how do you do it? And I think that reminded me of a story. So I reached across on my bookshelf and I pulled out a book, and it's a book by Ken Geyer, who is actually telling a story of a man by name named Ernest Seton. So here you have Roo telling you Ken Geyer's story he's telling from Ernest Seton. But I love this story, and it's short enough that I think you'll appreciate it. It's a man who had fallen in love with the Native American culture. He'd gone out west and even into the Southwest and into Mexico, and he found some Native Americans there, and he fell in love with their culture, the Indian culture, and what they did and how they just appreciated the earth and the land and even their attitude spiritually. It was pretty a phenomenal story. And one day he finds himself, this old man from Chicago who's touring there, not Ken, but the guy they're telling the story about, finds himself in Mexico City in a shady corner of a market, and he sees an Indian there whose name is Potolamo, Potolamo, Potolamo. Bad pronunciation, I'm sure, but you get the idea. And behind him are hanging some onions on a string. He's wound these onions around the strings, and he just has strings of onions. He's come to the market to sell his onions. So the American walks up and says, oh, how much are the onion strings? And he says, 10 cents. And he says, okay. How much if I buy 2 strings? He goes, 20 cents. He goes, well, how about if I buy 3 strings of onions? And he goes, 30 cents. And he goes, well, that's not much of a reduction. How about if I'm buying 3, could I get them for 25 cents? He goes, no. He says, okay, well, what if I bought all 20 strings of your onions? What if I bought them all? How much would that be? And Potolama says, well, I would not sell you all my strings of onions. And he says, well, what do you mean you wouldn't sell me all your onions? You're in the market. You've come to sell onions. And he says, well, I wouldn't sell you all of my onions because, and I wanted to make sure I get this right. Listen to this. I love this. He says, how much for 20 strings? I wouldn't sell you my 20 strings. Why not? Aren't you here to sell onions? No, replied Potolamo. I'm here to live my life. I love this marketplace. I love the crowds and the red serapes, the blankets that are hanging there. I love the sunlight and the waving palmettos. I love it when Pedro and Luis come by and they say, Buenos dias, and we talk about babies and we talk about crops. And I love to see my friends and they come out and we visit. And that is my life. And for that, I sit here all day and I sell my 20 strings of onions. But if I sell all of my onions to one customer, then my day is ended. and I have lost my life that I love, and I will not do that. Ken reflected on this story and says to himself, oh, I get it. He's really not there for the sale. He's there for the community. When we as artists learn to build community and really care for people and tell them about good tools and tell them about good paint and tell them about skills and attitude and how to approach the desk, when we do that and when we do it well, we build community. And then guess what happens in good community? Commerce, the sale, takes care of itself. I don't want to approach my desk every day and think, today I have to paint something to sell. Today I want to approach my desk and my art bar and say, I want to paint something that makes me smile, that brings life or levity or hope or helpfulness or some sort of a winsome, valuable attitude to someone else. And that's why I'm a maker. That's why I create. So I'm a little bit of an onion seller. I want to build a community. And yeah, I have to sell me. I'm a storyteller. I'm a salesman of me. But I'm also a seller of, I hope, good things to others. Enjoy the process of being an artist.